Happy New Year!
Woo-hoo!
Happy New Year!
Hey.
Fantasy football. It's over for 2023. We're in 2024. Kasey Scheinfeld, welcome to the party, pal. How was your New Year?
My New Year was pretty good. I won 2 leagues and came in third in another, so I'm pretty happy.
It's not bad. Not bad.
I won't talk about the 5 or 6 other ones, but
I won't talk about the 200 other ones I'm in.
Yeah,
but I won
exactly.
2 leagues and I came in third and one. So there you go.
Focus. There you go.
Well, Kasey, it was an epic. Let's just talk about last night real quick. I mean, I know this isn't a college football show. I know you'll get mad. I know after we'll talk, you'll be all upset we talk college football. But just really quick, I mean, first of all, the NCAA had it right for the 4 teams that made it. So
yeah, and
I would say
Alabama really crapped the bed at the end. That was hard to watch.
Well, both games came down to like the last 10 seconds. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was a great day of football. I mean, I know for you it was late, but I don't know if you stayed up for the second game. But I mean, the second game, Washington and Texas. I mean, that ended up going to the last play of the game. I mean, it was epic. Kasey Scheinfeld, epic.
Yeah. Yep.
So Penix, he played 400 yards. This guy broke almost every record in the NCAA. Almost him and Mahomes have like 4,000 yards. I mean, he's been compared to Mahomes just because of the yards this guy throws. How far? Where do you see him going in fantasy football dynasty leagues next season? Is he the number 1 pick now, or is it still Khalid Williams? Yeah. What would you do?
I don't think he's one of the first 3 quarterbacks off the board in dynasty next year in rookie drafts.
Wow, you heard it here first from Kasey Scheinfeld. You don't have him in the top 3.
Albert.
You don't have him in the top 3 in fantasy dynasty drafts next season. Yeah. Why? I just love to hear who you have.
Well, I think I think the top 3 are Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. I just think Penix, besides the fact he's 24, I believe, 23, 24, which makes him a couple years older. He had both ACLs done while he was in Indiana. He doesn't have from what I've read, I'm not a quarterback expert. There's questions about his throwing mechanics and how well that'll hold up in the NFL where there's much tighter windows. And I think, look, he's going to go in the first 6 picks, I think 7 picks of every dynasty draft, but I think he's quarterback number 4.
Okay. I mean, again, I just what he proved yesterday against a very good defense with Texas, and the whole year. I mean, the guy beat Oregon. I mean, the guy just keeps winning. I mean, he's 14-0. He's having a great season.
Yeah, Christopher Atwater. Thanks for joining us again, Christopher. Albert,
I can't believe he's still alive. I can't believe Atwater's still.
Yeah, it was a rough night for us watching that Alabama game. But he said Penix is high risk, high reward. I agree, but ironically, you're an Alabama guy. He reminds me a little of Tua.
Well, he's not. Is he left-handed?
He's left-handed, and he's not like I think he's taller than Tua was, but he's not he's a deep placement.
He has more legs,
mid-level placement type of thrower. And if he's in the right offense, if he gets the right receivers around him, he can have kind of Tua-like efficiency. But I wonder how he'll do with in the NFL. Whereas the other 3 we're talking about are more kind of traditional arm talent sort of quarterbacks.
Well, Jaden runs, but again, sorry to Atwater. I know he's a big World Tide guy. But the Rose Bowl is this an epic Rose Bowl game? I mean, the Rose Bowl.
It was great.
I mean, watching Michigan in the Rose Bowl, it was just epic. It was. It just reminds me of the '80s when I used to go to the Rose Bowls. In the '70s, when I was a little kid, I used to go to the Rose Bowls. I mean, it reminded me of that, and have Michigan in the Rose Bowl against Alabama. It was just an epic bowl, and no one was disappointed except Atwater sitting there in front of the TV watching his Bama team lose to a better Michigan team. But oh well, there's always next year. Let's talk NFL football. Kasey Scheinfeld, there's losers and winners of last weekend. let's start. I like talking about the losers first because I just feel better about myself. How about that, Kasey Scheinfeld? My biggest loser, I'll say it, was the Philadelphia Eagles losing at home to the Arizona Cardinals, Kasey Scheinfeld.
I know.
What's going on in Philadelphia?
They made Kyler Murray look like the number one draft pick all over again, didn't they, in the second half? Their secondary is pretty bad right now. And if they don't have a consistent pass rush, which they didn't seem to have in the game, they give quarterbacks way too much of an opportunity to pick them apart. Their offense is still good, but you don't win a Super Bowl being as long as we're the last team on the field, we have a chance to win kind of team. I think they're probably number 4, I would bet, in the NFC in terms of Super Bowl odds. I'd have to look, but I can't imagine they're above San Francisco, Dallas, or Detroit right now. Nobody was a bigger loser than the refs in the Detroit-Dallas game, for crying out loud. Did you see the end of that game?
I felt bad for that offensive tackle. They actually have video of him
him going up to the ref to announce. Yeah, they pulled that.
I don't know what was said. They didn't have a microphone, but
from what I read,
the only lineman that walked over to the ref was him. So I don't think he's asking him how his day's going. I think he's saying, I'm eligible. I believe that's what he said.
The NFL is agreeing because that refereeing crew has already been announced that they won't cover any postseason games. I felt bad for that. Turned one of the most exciting games ever into such an anticlimactic finish because of the refs. It was the refs were the biggest losers there. But I felt, Detroit was the number 2 seed, had everything lined up if the refs didn't screw that up. Now they're not going to, there's no chance for them getting a bye. And I think they'll only have one home game.
I feel bad for Dan Campbell. He's not my pick for Coach of the Year. He's in the mix, but he's not my pick. I don't know if you want my pick now or
D'Amico Ryans
later. No, it's not. He's not my pick later. My pick, we'll talk about it right now because he just talked about it. My pick, I'll give you a clue. You'll guess it in a second, but I just want to give you the reason why first, and then you can say, oh, I agree. This guy's using a 4th-string quarterback, Kasey Scheinfeld, that was sitting on the couch watching football in October. Like you and I, there you go. Joe Flacco, he brought this guy in, and the Browns, no one was talking about playoffs. Cleveland Browns, playoffs.
And now they've clinched it.
And now they have a 4th-string quarterback. Their defense is, I would say, elite because everybody said, their defense can get them to the playoffs. Well, their defense didn't get them to the playoffs. It helped. But Joe Flacco, 39 years old in January, Kasey Scheinfeld, this guy just took the whole team on his shoulders and carried it. And they're without their best running back. And,
I know.
And it's amazing.
They were without Amari Cooper, too, weren't they? They were about their best wide receiver.
It's amazing, the job. It's just amazing. Who's your vote for the best Coach of the Year?
Oh, it's Dan Campbell for me.
That's fine. I love Dan Campbell. I loved him on Hard Knocks. I'm not going to disagree with you.
I think getting them to their first playoff berth in 30 years or whatever it was, or division title in 30 years, is pretty special. So, but I don't disagree with your pick. I also like D'Amico Ryans in Houston, what he's done with CJ Stroud and that Texans team. I also like the Rams coach.
Sean
McVay has had a good day.
McVay's done wonders in LA. No one predicted them going to the playoffs, and they're in the playoffs. And it's
although I was very, very, very nervous at the end of that Giants-Rams game because I thought the Giants were not going to be the Giants and they were actually going to win the game, but they still managed to blow it and lose by 1. So we're still a top 5 pick. So that's good.
You're rooting to lose. Great. But yeah, you're still a top 5 pick. I'm pretty sure, Kasey, Giants fan, you're taking a quarterback. Is that what you're doing?
I wouldn't, but that's what they're going to do.
So Atwater says Mike Tomlin, my coach of the year, over the Browns or even over really.
See, I think I would take the Browns over that because he lost his starting quarterback. He lost his starting running back and still did it.
And no one predicted them to go that far. Even Dr. Dan Ratner, who's an old fan of the Browns, and he even dismissed them and threw away all his Browns gear and decided now he wants to find a new football team. And now he's all of a sudden he's creeping back.
Yeah,
he's creeping back. He was in Mexico watching the Browns.
The only one he'll never root for are the Ravens. So
yeah, I know that. But now he's creeping back slowly, Dr. Dan Ratner. You know what you're up to with the Browns. You're just watching, see how the smoke settles, and then
actually,
you're decide.
My coach of the year is Frank Reich.
Tell us why.
Because right now he has no job, but because of his last 2 coaching jobs and being bad enough at it in his contracts, he gets paid $50,000 a day by the Colts and the Panthers to do absolutely nothing.
But if he takes another job, he can't get that money, correct?
Right, but why would you take another job? Just enjoy.
I guess you just sit around and entertain phone calls and order Domino's.
I mean, I know you're used to making $50,000 a day, but the rest of us aren't. So that's a lot of money to us. La La Land has changed.
It's not that much here, but yes, it's $50,000 a day in Carolina. I guess it's a good amount of money. I get it. Kasey, let's talk about the winners of the weekend. My number one winner pick will go to the Baltimore Ravens. They rolled over the Miami Dolphins, Kasey. Lamar Jackson, you can just give him the MVP.
I played against him in one of my games. That went really well.
Vegas has him right now, Kasey Scheinfeld. He's
plus something.
It's like plus. No, it's minus 20,000.
So you have to bet 20,000 to win 100.
Yes. You got to bet 20. Yeah, that's what you got to do. I mean, that's how much they think he has.
Will you announce this when Atwater needs his moment in the sun?
Winners, Saints. I'm not there yet. We just got to the first one. The biggest one, Atwater, is for sure the Baltimore Ravens and how they dismantled the Miami Dolphins. And after all these Dolphin fans come out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, we're going to the Super Bowl. We'll be in Vegas." No, you're not. You're not going to the Super Bowl because you have no defense and you have no synergy on that team. I mean, you have Tyreek Hill. Yeah, Waddle's hurt. And we'll talk about the rest of the team a little later.
HN was very good.
And yeah, HN, their running game is good, but just Baltimore's clicking on all cylinders. They look good.
Even Odell Beckham is clicking right now for them.
As much as I don't want them to be in the Super Bowl in Vegas, I think they're a team to beat, but I think they're beatable. I really do. And I think there's teams that can give them a good fight.
I think Buffalo and Kansas City are the only two that stand anywhere near a remote chance against him.
Are there any other winners, Kasey, this weekend that you want to bring up that you said?
Well, I think Dallas is a winner. I mean, granted, I don't like the way they won that game. CeeDee Lamb is a winner. Jesus, he had what, 200?
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Fortunately, I had him on 2 of my teams that were in the finals, so that went well for me. But that win, coupled with the Cardinals beating the Eagles, opened up the division again for Dallas next week. Who do they play? They play Washington, and Dallas and the Eagles play the Giants. So it's all divisional, and they still have a chance to win the division and get a home game.
I mean, in Chris Atwater, big Saints fan. The Saints came out and played unbelievable.
Yeah, they needed Tampa Bay to lose too, and they got both.
Tampa Bay lost. If I saw the stat score and I said, "Oh, Baker Mayfield had 300 yards and threw a touchdown," I would say they won the game. But they didn't win the game.
All of those yards and the touchdown all came with like 6 minutes left.
It did. I mean, it's amazing. And I think Baker's going to be back in Tampa Bay. I don't know if they announced that yet officially. I think they've been whispering it, but I think Baker's going to be back. Kasey, let's talk. It's been a long season of fantasy football, Kasey. We had our arguments. We had our agreements. There's many bad choices I made that you made. There's many great choices that we made. I was trying to figure out a way to give people a way to who's the best at each position or who's the biggest surprise and who's the MVP of fantasy. I'm just going to do it position by position and we'll talk about each player. So
okay,
let's talk quarterback, Kasey Scheinfeld. Every year we always say Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that comes out of my mouth.
Yeah, he's not even in my top 6.
He's not mentioned. I mean, I just mentioned because of the past, and he's somebody. I would say 80% of the leagues took him first as the first quarterback. If I had to guess, there's probably some Joe Burrow fans and probably some Lamar Jackson fans that took him sooner, but probably not. So Kasey, tell me your top 3 quarterbacks this year, and then combine
for value or just in overall performance?
Overall, how they did and how you perceive them as next year in the draft in fantasy football.
Well, I think the top 3 overall were Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson.
So Jalen Hurts you have in there. 15, this is just over stats.
15 rushing touchdowns.
Right.
Like, I mean, ironically, so did Josh Allen. The difference is Josh Allen also threw for 27 touchdowns and Jalen Hurts only threw for 23. Lamar Jackson rushed for more yards than both of them, but only had 5 rushing touchdowns as opposed to 15 because he's not their short yardage runner. Like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen with Jalen Hurts with the tush push and Josh Allen just running it in. I think in terms of best value for where you drafted them, it has to be Dak Prescott because you got him, 9th round, 8th round in a single quarterback league. Brock Purdy and Jordan Love. We talked about him early, how good of a year he was having, and then he struggled in the middle, but he finished strong. He finished with 30 touchdown passes and over 3,800 yards. So he had fewer interceptions than Allen and Hurts too. So he actually finished really strong too. So those 3, I would say based on draft position, are the best.
Again,
I don't agree with
the value pick.
Atwater. I don't agree with Tua.
Tua's been Tua.
He threw for a lot of yards. He led in passing yards, but only 28 touchdowns to 12 picks. That's not a great.
No, he's not good at all. Another guy that was for value pick. He's probably in my top 5 overall in value pick is C.J. Stroud.
Because he was undrafted, and
he was undrafted or he's drafted in the last round. I mean, this guy. If I was drafting, next year's quarterback rankings for me, I have Stroud in the top 5. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm putting Stroud. I love that Houston offense. I love Nico Collins. I think Tank's going to be back. I think that offense is something that you should try to get a piece of next season. I'll talk about it more of course next season. But overall, I thought Houston, to me, that offense is something you want to get a piece of next season. What do you think?
I don't know if I have him that high, but I certainly like him. I don't like that he doesn't run as much as some of the dual.
He doesn't run. There's some games that he did a lot, and some games he barely.
But I do like him. I don't think he's top 5 next year, but he's right there. I still think the 3 I mentioned are above him because they're not going anywhere. I think Mahomes has and a healthy Joe Burrow. Both I still would prefer over him, especially if Kansas City can land a wide receiver in the offseason.
So next season in quarterbacks, Kasey, you could say there's out of the top 10 quarterbacks, you would be comfortable drafting any of those top 10.
Yeah, for the most part. Once you get to 9 and 10 into that Jared Goff, Tua Tagovailoa, it's a little less comfortable.
But remember, Joe Burrow is hurt, so you're going to have to put him in somewhere in your rankings. He's not going to be in numbers. He's going to be in a lot of people's top 5, top 6, I would say, next season, for sure. And there's going to be, and there's also, you got to think of like, where's Khalid Williams going? What do you do with him?
Right.
Is Bo Nix going to be a professional quarterback? Probably. Will he start?
So, Chris, I'm confused. You say, but 40 plus for Tua has to be the most in fantasy. 40 plus what? Tua threw for 28 touchdowns.
40 plus. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know.
Maybe 4,400 yards. Yes, was the most. Brock Purdy had 4,280, and then
Brock Purdy's the top 10 quarterback next season.
37. I don't see how you don't take him as a top 10, a lock at 7 or 8 at quarterback next season. I mean, like the efficiency numbers are crazy.
It is. I mean, there's so many good quarterbacks coming back next season.
Oh, I see what he meant. He was talking about how in our league you get a bonus for 40-yard passes if it's over 40 yards.
Okay. Again, Tua's up there. I mean,
again, Chris, I don't disagree with you that he's valuable, but that's a quirky scoring thing that we put
It
into
is.
ours. Not every league gives you bonuses for long passes. When I'm talking about rankings, Chris, I'm talking about the standard, kind of standard category rotisserie statistics, which is yards, touchdowns, interceptions.
Love it. Let's talk running backs, Kasey Scheinfeld. There were some prizes this year, Kasey. I mean, CMC, obviously the number one running back in probably every fantasy league, I imagine, even with crazy rules like we had. I mean, this guy had a touchdown almost every game. He was catching the ball, he was running the ball. I mean, did everything. So CMC, do you agree with me that he's the number one pick in fantasy football next year? Yes or no?
In single quarterback leagues, yes.
Yeah, I'm not talking anything crazy right now. I'm just talking single quarterback.
Not in super flex, but in single quarterback.
Your regular boring league that you've been playing for 100 years. He's your number one pick, even though he's 27 years old. You don't care, Kasey Scheinfeld. You'll spin that wheel like you did this year, and you'll see what he can do. Who's the number two running back this year in fantasy was Raheem Mostert. I mean, just because Williams for the Rams got hurt and didn't play a few games, but Mostert. Where do you have him in your ratings for next year? And what do you do with him? I mean, is he somebody you draft in the first couple of rounds? Or you do hold up? What do you do?
I don't. And I'm gonna admit my bias. I'm an ageist, and he's 30 right now. I don't trust him next year. I think, he averaged almost 5 yards a carry this year, which was great, but he only had 25 receptions as a running back. That's not very good. And he reminds me a little of Jamal Williams last year. He got into the end zone 18 times, which is where his points came from as a runner. And then Jamal Williams disappeared this year. I think Achane has proven he should be the number one or the primary back in Miami next year. And so Mostert's going to be kind of in a similar role to Jamal Williams all the time. And he's so touchdown dependent. I don't see him as a top, maybe not even a top 7 or 8 running back, top 10. And so that's not a knock on him. I just don't trust him.
So after him, I have Kyren
Williams is number 2.
Kyren Williams. I mean, he had an exceptional year, Kasey. 3 times. I mean, almost every game he had multiple touchdowns, this guy. I mean, he was just on fire. Then he got hurt. Then he came back. I mean, where do you draft him in the next year in the
Kyren Williams? He's a second round pick, maybe end of the first, I think, in a standard league. I just, after McCaffrey and the big wide receivers are off the board, unless you're going to go early Josh Allen or early Hurts or Lamar Jackson, I think Kyren Williams, has to be there.
The number 2 back.
He doesn't catch as many as Travis Etienne or Breece Hall, or Jahmyr Gibbs for that matter. Those are the other 3 who I would consider taking above him. But given that he rushed for 1,100 yards, having missed 3 games or 4 games, and he did it with 12 touchdowns, which was a lot of touchdowns. But when you look at 14 and 18 for some of these other running backs, he did it more efficiently than these other guys.
I like it. So let's talk Derrick Henry. I mean, you've been down on Derrick Henry all year. I'm not a
Derrick Henry guy. He's still got 1,000 yards though, so I'll tip my cap to him.
I mean, he got 1,000 yards. He had some touchdowns, but where do you draft him next year?
I'm probably avoiding him. I'd probably draft him if I did as RB 13 or 14. If I had to guess right now, I haven't looked real close. Again, I think you're seeing the age catch up to him, and the wear and tear on the body. And I think you're going to see more Tyjae Spears.
I agree.
And less Derrick Henry. He reminds me a little bit of maybe what Zeke Elliott. I think his peak would be Zeke Elliott of Dallas last year when Tony Pollard was the big playback.
I mean, guys, I'm not drafting next year. Tony Pollard, you said it. He's not. He's Ross's do not draft list. Eckler is on Ross's do not draft list. I never want to see the guy.
Nino has a good point. If Arthur Smith gets fired, Bijan is my pick again.
He's fired next Monday. He's fired.
Did they say it already?
No, but Ross the boss can tell you right now that guy's not going to have a job on Monday.
Well, I hope so because then Bijan does move up the list, but I don't think he's my number 1.
No, Atlanta to me, if for some reason when players go there hasn't been like a great fantasy player from Atlanta since like the Dirty Bird guy. I mean, Anderson. I mean, there really hasn't. I mean, I don't know.
Well, hey,
I guess Michael Vick
Calvin Ridley was pretty good for a while there in Atlanta before
I
he
guess
got in
fine.
trouble. You
I
had
guess
Tony Gonzalez as a tight end there for a while, was pretty good.
Okay, fine, but there's nobody that stands out that I'm saying fantasy wise that I look. Arthur Smith is gone. He's not going to have a job next Monday. He'll be the first coach fired. You heard it from me first, Ross the boss. But let's talk. Anything else you want to say about running backs, Kasey? And running backs to me remind me about this next season, Kasey. Do not draft a running back so early. Hold off on running backs. Hold off on running backs.
I think next year, if I was to predict, is going to be the ascension sort of year for Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, and James Cook. I think those four are the ones who I saw enough, certainly at the end of the season when they got Jahmyr Gibbs the ball more and James Cook as he started getting more involved.
How about your guy, Rachaad White? How about him?
Rachaad White, I like. He's not an efficient runner, though. He's like a 3.5 yards per carry. He's going to be a top 10 running back again, but I'm talking about those four have a chance to get up into the Kyron Williams, CMC tier 1 discussion.
Okay. Top tier. I never trusted Jet. I think there's just text. I don't think any great fantasy players.
Yeah, but Breece Hall, even with not going through they went to the bus station to pick their quarterback some weeks, still finished, currently has the 6th most points and is only 1/10 of a point behind Rachaad White amongst running backs in standard leagues.
I get it. A guy that, to me, running back wise,
75 passes, by the way.
If he could stay healthy, is James Conner of the Cardinals. I mean, Kasey.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He's
every
gamer.
year. There's people just write him off. I mean, they really do, especially in the draft.
Of those guys who doesn't test well. Like his 40 time isn't probably great. They would score his vision or patience or whatever at the average to maybe above average. His strength might not, but he's a gamer. Like you put him in a game and he just knows how to find.
He's unbelievable. He's the real deal, this guy. I mean, he really is. And I'll be drafting him in the third
he's the opposite as a golfer. He's the opposite of a driving range pro. The guy who can go to the driving range and bomb these 300-yard drives and do all these trick shots. Yep. But then you put him on a course and he can't break 100 or 90. This is a guy who on the driving range might look average, but then you put him out on a course and he just knows how to make shots, right? He's going to figure out a way to get par from anywhere.
Well put. Let's talk wide receiver, and then we'll briefly talk about tight ends. I'm not talking defenses. That's wasting my time. Wide receiver, Kasey, give me your top 3 for the year.
My top 3 for the year: CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Can't argue. I can't argue. Who are some of the surprises that you wish you had on your team that you didn't, that you want to draft next season?
Well, Puka, I think, is number one.
Puka's number one on mine too. I mean, I think Puka took Coop's job in Los Angeles, but that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I talked a lot preseason about how much I liked Brandon Ayuk, but I didn't get him as much as I wanted to. Next year, I'm going to be a little more vigilant in getting him.
Arizona State, yep.
I was pleasantly surprised because he's a Terp, because I'm a Maryland guy, but DJ Moore in Chicago, I thought he was going there to kind of like be almost forgotten about, but he ended up with 92 receptions, 1,300 yards. Like he had another big day. And then almost every Texans receiver, right? Nico Collins and Tank Dell just put up numbers. And then when one of them was out, bad Noah Brown came in and did stuff.
So next season, if you're drafting and you're a receiver in the first round, and you have your choice of either CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill, who do you take, Kasey Scheinfold?
I am taking CeeDee Lamb.
So CeeDee Lamb is your number one receiver for next season.
He's in the top 3. I mean, look, Jamar Chase had a bad year. Jefferson got hurt too. They still have to be in the consideration for the top wide receiver next year. So I think as long as I get one of the top 5 receivers in the draft, I'm very happy. Like, I don't think the difference is huge between if you put Amon-Ra St. Brown at 5, and then you're talking about Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. If you get one of those 5, even, I mean, heck, you could throw A.J. Brown in there because he had 112 receptions this year too. Any one of those guys, and you're content that you have a true number 1 wide receiver.
I love it. And I think wide receivers, I'm going to take my first 2 rounds. I'm taking wide receivers, Kasey Scheinfeld.
Yeah, that's what I did in our Dynasty League. I got Jefferson in round 1 and Lamb in round 2. So
Dynasty's a little different because you're looking at a lot of different things like age and teams. And
Albert Merrickman has a question for you. What are you doing with Stephon Diggs next season?
I don't think he'll be a Bill next season, Kasey Scheinfeld. He's really unhappy in Buffalo. I mean, everybody I talk to who knows the Bills tell me that he's unhappy. He doesn't want to be there. His routes, he runs half speed. I mean, he's not playing like he wants to play for Allen or be in Buffalo. I think he's upset because his volume's way down. It matters where he goes. He could be a Kansas City Chief,
right?
And I also think Waddle. I also think that T. Higgins for the Bengals can be a Kansas City Chief too.
I think
there's no way, Kasey, they're going to keep those receivers.
Yeah, I think if Diggs goes to Kansas City, he becomes a viable number 1 wide receiver too.
Yeah,
just as
I mean, how many drop passes can they have in Kansas? I mean, every time he throws the ball, including Kelce, I'm putting him on the list too. They've been dropping balls like crazy, and I think Kelce's done. I'm not drafting him next year.
No, he's not in my top.
I'm taking your guy Laporta. That's my number 1 tight end. We're talking about tight ends right now, Kasey. Tell me your 3 favorite tight ends next season who you want to draft because of this season. Go.
Well, I think Laporta is my number 1.
Love it.
I would have put Hawkinson too, but he has a total knee repair, doesn't he? So he might be out the start of the season.
Yeah, his health isn't the best right now. I would keep him off my list.
I mean, George Kittle was surprisingly healthy, so he.
I love Kittle. He's in the top 3,
and I'm going to put Trey McBride as my number.
He's my number 3.
Yeah,
there you go. You nailed exactly what I wanted. McBride to me is this guy has 7-8 receptions every week.
Yeah, and I think you're going to be looking at another one where Brock Bowers as a rookie could be interesting. The kid out of
Georgia, yeah.
So tight ends have been leaving a mark as rookies the last couple of years. So.
I like him a lot. I think, and also Andrews should be back. Isaiah Likely. I mean, Kasey, what do you do in Baltimore with Andrews coming back? I mean, and Likely there that proved he could be an NFL everyday tight end.
Yeah, I think it's a luxury if you can afford him, and they can right now. But I think once he's a free agent, he's gone. No, they're not going to trade him. They don't want to give that up.
Right, but I mean, you could get a lot for him during a draft day if you want to move up in the draft.
People aren't going to give you a lot for a tight end.
He's pretty special, Kasey. I don't know, but I think overall, I think it's been a great season for fantasy football. Very competitive. A lot of major injuries, though. I really don't remember a year that so many quarterbacks went down, and we were using second string, third string, fourth string quarterbacks. It's been a crazy year with that kind of stuff. I hope next season there's not as many injuries, obviously.
No, I know.
And then, with running backs, we have like Chubb's coming back. We have some running backs that were hurt all year.
Yep.
That are going to move down.
To see where Saquon Barkley ends up because he won't be a Giant next year.
You don't think so?
No, they put him on a 1-year contract. They're not going to do that again, and they're not going to give him a long-term deal when they're picking in the top 5 in the draft every year.
Where do you think Barkley's going to go?
Where do I think Barkley's going to go? Yeah. I could see him going to Dallas, especially if Pollard is gone, because I think they could use him pretty badly. I could see him. Wow, that's a good question.
I think maybe New England. I think they could use any offense they can.
Well, they could use anything, but are they going to? I mean, Belichick is notoriously stingy with big contracts. If he's looking for a big contract, he's not going to get it there. I could see him going to the Chargers if Eckler's gone, because Eckler was so disappointing this year. They might throw money at him to go to LA. There's a lot of teams that would like to have a Saquon Barkley type running back. but it's ones who are in a position to win now or win soon and have equity. And there's not a tremendous amount of those.
So the week coming up, a lot of, there's no reason the Baltimore Ravens should start Lamar Jackson. I don't see him playing. They already said Christian McCaffrey's not playing week 18. There's no reason for him to play. A lot of, there's no championship games this week. I mean, everything's done in fantasy, correct?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there are some that
the only thing is best ball.
Silly enough to do a week 18.
The best ball leagues that we did, Kasey, the best ball leagues, which I'm doing exceptionally well in, I think they go all the way to week 18.
Yeah, best ball might. I have to look in how I do. The problem with best ball leagues is I'm in like 9 of them, but I've never checked them because you just draft and then let it go.
I check like once or twice a month.
Okay. Christopher Atwater knows if Belichick's out.
Belichick getting fired. Yeah, I think, as we said, this is. I thought he was going to go to the Chargers, but now my theory is this: I think Belichick will not go to the Chargers. I think Harbaugh is going to win the national. Doesn't matter if he wins or loses the national championship with Michigan. I think he's going to want a Super Bowl ring because his brother has one, and he'll be a San Diego Charger coach for next season. Belichick
goes to the Panthers.
I don't think so. He wants to break that Schuler. He wants to go to a team that's already accomplished. He wants to go to a team that can win because he needs 16 more wins to break the record. So I think Belichick's time is done in New England. New England needs to find a new identity. They're not going to win with the players they have. I mean, that quarterback, Mac Jones, even though he went to Alabama, Atwater, he's horrible. Come on, admit it right now. It's horrible. Mac Jones, horrible quarterback. And
Party Marty thinks the Dolphins are going to win.
Well, another quarterback that went to Alabama, they could, but we'll see. I don't know. I don't want. Listen, I rather have Ovechkin than Seguin. I mean, just so you know, there's no. Your trades offers are not up to par.
They're not good.
Party. They're not good. Please. But Kasey, anything else you want to say? And then we'll let everybody go.
No. I mean, it was a good season. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I can't wait to start talking baseball.
Yeah, baseball. Big news. A lot of stuff. Chris Sale, Atlanta Brave.
Yeah, how weird is that?
The stove is still not lit, Kasey. We haven't seen that many signings, but in baseball, but hopefully we will soon. We'll talk baseball with you very shortly. I'm Ross the Boss. That's Kasey, Vlad to the Bone Shinefold. We'll see you guys soon.